Hello, YouTube. Am I fuzzy again? As you can see, I've put on a full dad uniform, kind of as a joke. I'm going bald, as you can clearly tell, but I once had a fabulous mane of hair. So I figured I'd grow my hair in one last time to just say goodbye to the golden locks that used to exist. And then when I shave my beard, well, that'd be funny to do the goatee, kind of look like a 1980s action movie villain. That means I got to grow this shit out into a ponytail, though. Get that real nice, like slick back, cokehead 1980s villain look, for my daughter. I'm sure she'll appreciate it. Anyways, somebody uploaded my video where I talked about the really bad dream to a Reddit, and all of a sudden I have a lot more subscribers and I have a shitload of comments. And I figured I might as well make a video addressing some of that stuff and addressing why I don't really upload. Like I finally came to the real conclusion as to why I don't really upload anymore. And to put that part straight, I don't want to. And we'll get into why soon. Many of you ask, how are you doing? I'm doing okay. I live in a new place. I know you can't tell because cheap rental duplexes have the same crappy brown paint job to hide all of the misery and broken dreams. I didn't bring that here. That was already on the walls when I got here. I recently had a giant education goal. It personally shames me, but at 38 years old, I earned my GED finally. And it was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be, which really pisses me off because I wasted so much of my life being afraid of that stupid fucking test. But I needed to get my ADHD treated. And I didn't do that until just recently, about a year ago. And then I was able to really sit down, study math, and get that shit done. Knocked it out. Did a great job. And I'm looking at college now. Don't know what I'm going to do yet. So I'm not sure where I'm going college-wise just yet. I work on a lot of projects at home. Art. I'm working. I found colored pencils way back. For anybody that followed me way back when I first started doing these things, I did a lot of art, painting, and stuff like that. But it didn't grab. I kept putting it down and not being interested. I finally started doing adult coloring books. I didn't think much of it, just something to do. When you live disabled, you get a lot of time on your hands, so you just look for activities of any sort, really. I don't always have my daughter, so I started doing adult coloring books to fill time, and I really like colored pencils, and I found out that some of the best, most realistic art out there is done by colored pencil. So there's no skill ceiling. I can just go with that stuff, and so I've been trying to practice art with that. My girlfriend was very thoughtful and got me a set of very nice oil-based pencils. I'm not going to advertise brand or anything, but it's oil-based and it feels real good. So I'm learning that. Always dadding it up. As you can see, I'm wearing my full dad uniform right now. She's doing great. All the education and time I've poured in. She's having fun. She's a smiling little girl full of life and love. And, she's got a pretty good education for a kid her age. Let's see. That kind of covers. People were like, hey, I hope you're doing okay. I am. I know that dream video had me coming across as tormented. A lot of people told me to seek therapy. Making that video kind of was the therapy for that dream. I've talked to therapists. I see a psychiatrist. I used to see a psychologist. The only thing that really comes up when I did my psych eval was my ADHD and my anxiety issues, which stem from before my accident, kind of how I was raised. And I'm doing they have positive views on how I cope. And talking about it is one of the ways that I cope. And I got it out. That's what you guys are for. Like, I don't care if I become YouTube famous or something. I don't think that's ever going to happen or is a thing for me. But being able to come on here and talk to you guys, to talk to anybody, to know that there are ears there listening, it's a really good, strong therapy for me. It allows me to take things that I'm having trouble internalizing, and then I force them out. And then once they're out, something changes about their properties. I'm able to analyze them differently, or cope with them better. And that's what that video was. I got it out, and I never have to talk about it again. Anytime anybody's curious, I can go, the video's right over there. Don't ask me. Video is serving its purpose. As good as it was in helping me confront the horror of that particular time in my coma nightmares, it's still a very hard and tragic thing for me to think about. And we're going to get into some of these comments. I know how bullshitty it seems because it's so crazy. I knew that when I was in there. I didn't accept any of my nightmares as reality. I always knew I was dreaming, and yet, you can only say to yourself, I'm dreaming, this isn't real, so many times before you're like, yeah, but the knife in my back fucking feels real. And that's all that really matters. And then you start to go insane because you can't wake up. So a lot of people think I'm full of shit. And hey, you are totally, you have my permission to have that opinion because I get it. I get it. That is a fucking crazy story. It's bananas. It makes no logical sense. It's all over the place. It's not a story in the common sense of stories that we've heard. There's no real progression. There's just, I was in moments of horror and torment, and it still bothers me. Normal nightmares and dreams, I could give a shit. You wake up and they're almost already gone. Who cares? The only reason this was different, I think, is one, I was fed a cocktail of drugs to keep me down. This wasn't a coma from knocking my head real hard. I think people who get those comas don't dream anything. It's like they're blinking. If they ever do wake up, all they remember is they went down, they opened their eyes, and they're in a hospital. That's not what happened to me. I think it was partially my fault that I had that experience, because as a young person in my teens and my 20s, I love drugs, especially psychedelic drugs. I really wanted to feel all the different ways that the mind could expand. And I probably did something to change something in my mental chemistry to where the cocktail they usually give you to keep you down in an induced coma didn't work quite right, and it glitched out, and I was able to feel some of the surgeries. I'm guessing that's why I felt myself get torn apart or tortured or whatever, is because I was on a surgery table. I didn't always dream that I was being torn apart or killed, but they featured prominently in my memories. And I think each of those dreams was I was on a surgery table getting cut open. And so my mind was trying to translate what it was feeling into some kind of sense, which didn't make sense at all because it turned into monsters and crap. And I think because of my, I guess, inbuilt resistance to some of that drug cocktail. By the way, I'm not a scientist or a doctor or anything. I'm not entirely sure on any of this shit. I'm guessing. I've tried to explain what happened to me a million different ways. Doctors don't have much. The best a doctor's ever been able to tell me is, yeah, that happens sometimes. I'm not the only one. Thanks, Doc. I think it's because of my past with drugs. When I was a worse person, a worse individual, and I didn't care about what I was doing to myself, and I was experimenting with every psychotropic drug I could get my hands on. And then years later, this happens, I get put into an induced coma, and all of a sudden I can't, the drug cocktail doesn't work right. My fault. Maybe it isn't. I don't know. But it happened. A lot of people were like, you bullshit, you sound insincere. Okay, I guess. That might have happened because I was forcing myself to speak. I was forcing myself, the story, I was pushing it out of me. So if I came across as bullshit or fake, I apologize, but it's still true. Sorry, I guess. And as for why I don't really post much, I don't know what to post. I don't know what to post. I'm tired of telling the story over and over again. I'm tired of let's be real here. One of the biggest reasons people watch my videos is because I don't have legs. And they want to see what a dude without legs looks like doing shit. And I don't want to be that. And it's not, I don't even really get mad at you guys for that. Of course, you want to see that. If I was able bodied and somebody put that video on, in fact, you know what? I'm going to be honest. I was a fan of somebody that I'm still a fan of for a different reason. Before my accident, I watched a disabled person doing they did something, Zach Anner, Workout Wednesdays. Dude's an inspiration. Awesome. Great sense of humor. When I first started watching him, I was able bodied. I didn't have the perspective I did now. And part of me was like, look at this guy with all those disabilities go. Look at him go. And nowadays, I'm just like, man, I'm glad you're doing something. Because it's hard. It's hard to do something when you're very physically disabled. That's just the truth. So I respect and admire him for a completely different set of reasons because my perspective. I was able-bodied, now I'm disabled, and I see him in a different light. Zach Anner, cool guy. Uploads even more often than I do. Still not super often, so you might find better stuff there. I don't really know what to post. I've thought about posting like what I have to do when I get up, and like say I wake up in the early morning, I emergency have to use the bathroom. What you do and what I do, completely different. Like I thought about maybe doing these things to help to help able-bodied people have better perspective on what disabled people deal with. But that's just disingenuous too, because I have no legs. Other people have different disabilities. Like I'm not speaking for them. I'm not speaking for the disabled community. I'm speaking for me as a double leg amputee. So at the same time, like if I do that, I'm still essentially putting on a clown show saying, look at my disabilities, give me attention. And it just doesn't feel good. I think I started making these kinds of things just for something to do. Because the truth is, I'm doing okay. I'm making things happen in my life, but disabled life is boring. It's an overcast, rainy day today, and I'm stuck at home. I'm often stuck at home. I'm often forced to, like, when I'm thinking about the future, what college courses to take, what kind of, because I don't want to be on benefits forever. Hardly anybody does. Like this myth of the welfare queen who loves benefits is so rare. It's so fucking rare because people don't like being nothing. It feels bad. It makes you feel like, why do I exist? So I find reasons to exist, but they're not fun for the camera. Why would I stream? Hey, I'm coloring this picture while learning to use this medium. Hey, I'm doing some outside project, restoring a chair for my daughter. Nothing fancy. I'm sanding and painting. There's 1,000,001 channels to see that kind of shit on YouTube. So why stream that stuff? The only things left to stream are things that basically say, hey, look at me. I'm all cripply. Isn't that interesting? And I don't want to do that anymore. I wouldn't mind doing something where I could help educate able-bodied people on some of the difficulties that disabled people face that able-bodied people just aren't aware of because you're not disabled. It's nothing offensive or anything. You're just not disabled, and you see the big stuff. I did, and then I became disabled, and the things that wrecked me, made me cry in my fucking wheelchair. It wasn't the big stuff. I knew that shit was coming. It was all these little things that you don't think about, and they hit you like hammers. But in that same vein, able-bodied people, I guess that's like a walking toilet or something. I don't know. Shit while you're walking. Anyways, able-bodied people who never become disabled could also serve to have some of that information to just kind of know, why our world isn't quite as accessible as people think it is. And there's a lot of things that are kind of wrong, but hard to bring up because people are always so quick to just get over it, deal with it. And it's just okay. Yeah, I am, but it would be nice if, and the problems that I face are completely different than the problems a blind person faces or somebody with arm amputees faces, yada, yada, et cetera, et cetera. So many disabilities. how do you account for them all? You can only, I'm rambling. Anyways, so if anybody has any ideas, like, I'm listening. I wouldn't mind putting on more shows and talking about things. I don't want to be a circus freak. I'm not doing this for attention. I know some of you don't believe that for whatever reasons, and it's fine, but I'm not doing this for attention. I'm doing this to do something. Just doing it because I can from the comfort of my home within my disability's needs. So if anybody has any ideas on shows to do where I'm not just like, look at my stumps, isn't that weird? You know, I'm listening. I'm open for it. I thought about some stuff. I just don't know if it's appropriate. Not like I'm going to start jacking off on screen, but it's really boring, probably. The things that interest me are probably really boring to a lot of you. You know, here, I'll do a slight, like, you want me to review, say, I'm reading sci-fi books. They're huge, like Bibles. I can review this stuff. Woo! It's exciting. I don't have like the editing know-how to make that kind of stuff look exciting, so it would just be me on camera like, hi guys, I'm reading this book. What do you think about it? I think it's pretty cool. Nobody wants that. So I guess that's why, you know, I don't make much content because I don't know what to make for you guys. Nobody chatted. That accidentally block chat or something? Everybody's like, don't say anything. He's all cripply and weird, and we don't want to like be rude. Actually, I get that a lot. And since I'm live, fuck it. Let's just chat until this coffee's done, and then that'll be my episode. Might be my last episode. I don't know. What else did people bring up? A lot of therapy. And I talked about that briefly earlier, but trust me, guys, I'm okay. I'm mentally, I'm cognizant. I'm aware of what is inside of me that is dark, that still hurts me. The thing with trauma, and actually, I don't have the book with me. I'm reading a book called Trauma and Recovery. Apparently, it's required reading in a lot of psychology classes and stuff. I don't know. My roommate had it, and he let me borrow it, and it's a very good book. It's an educational bit about PTSD, trauma, and how people recover from it. And so far, so good on my end. A lot of it is, hey, talk about that shit. I'm here, I'm doing that. And a lot of it is like having a very supportive community. I have that. My girlfriend, my roommate, they're very good and close, and I feel very open and honest with them. I can tell these people anything. I guess I shouldn't call him my roommate. He's my friend. He's currently my best friend. He's a good guy. My family, you know, they're always there. People listen to me. I don't really need psychology. I need psychiatry. I have moderate ADHD without my medicine. You see me rambling now. Imagine me off the Adderall. Way worse. We'd be on some other fucking. I'd be sitting here talking to you guys about a movie I saw last night, having completely left behind disabled life. Like after the first 3 sentences, I would have been started jumping tangents. At least here I'm somewhat on the same road. And I get gabapentin for my pain, but I take it for my anxiety. It's good for both. I guess that's about it. I'm doing okay. I'm mentally secure and sound, and my story isn't bullshit. But if it came off that way, I accept that. I can't prove it to anyone, and I wouldn't want to, because to prove its authenticity to somebody, they would have to go through it. No fucking way am I going to have anybody. I don't care how much of an asshole they are to me. They could be like, you suck cocks in hell, mister. And I'll be like, that's fine. Feel free thinking that. As long as you want. You never need to go through what I went through in order to believe I went through it. Don't believe it. It's fine. I might stream video games. I play a lot of those. Those help me get out of my reality more than anything else I have right now. I wish I had the kind of money for like a VR setup. That's that's some stupid money. So that's something for the future, I guess. So I might stream some game stuff. What else can I talk about that people might ask me questions? If any of you guys watching have any questions, feel free to ask them. I haven't seen shit in my top chat. I'm thinking maybe it's just not working. How about live chat? There we go. Son of a bitch. Sorry, guys. You guys have been in here chatting, and I didn't have the chat set up correctly. I'm so embarrassed. I'm becoming an old man who doesn't know technology. Please help me. How do I control alt delete? So yeah. Not sure if you'll see this. I want to answer, how vividly do you remember seeing your daughter for the first time after coming out of the coma? Brandon, I have a video about that. Look up my other videos. No way I'm talking about that whole long, big, complicated story right here. There's a whole nother video for it. You can see it. Hey, Karen. So, not sure how you'll see this, or want to answer. How vividly do you remember seeing your daughter for the first time after coming out of the coma? Very. I didn't see her for like almost 2 months after I woke up. So I was very with it and aware by that point. They kept her away from me because I was on contact, which means that I was infectious. I was still dealing with a lot of infection when I woke up, and I was on contact a lot, which means when the doctors come into your room or the nurses or whatever, they have to gown up, put on the mask, the gloves, everything. They can't just come in, check your vitals and shit, because apparently I was infectious. I got C. diff while I was in the hospital. So that just tells you how weakened my immune system was. That shit went around, and I caught it. I actually caught another infection while I was in the hospital. I had this suction vac right here before this wound closed up entirely. For a period of time, I had a suction vac on there. And it stopped working correctly, but I didn't fuss with it because I was on a lot of drugs, honestly. A lot of the most powerful painkillers, and mostly I just sat there and stared at YouTube on my phone after morning workouts. Because by that time, I was in the rehab facility. But they don't, people like me, they don't work you all day. I was frail. Like this was like hanging muscle, like hanging skin off of bone. So they worked me in the morning. I did like a little pedal thing. I threw a balloon a few times back to the bedroom to be on like fentanyl and shit, and just, you know, so who am I to give a shit that my suction thing isn't working right? Turns out it was sucking pus because I got infected again. The doctor came in, pulled it out. It looked like fucking mozzarella. I'm just grossing out some people who are eating lunch. And the doctor, to give the doctor his credit, he was like, and just kind of cleaned me up, got all the shit out of my wound, cleaned it up real good, and said, you're not going to need to be on the suction thing anymore. We're going to put something different in there. And by that time, the next day, after they put on some medicine to clear up the infection and everything, I started to feel better. Idle games, yes, Cookie Clicker. That's my favorite one. I've also played Universal Paperclips and other ones. It depends on how bored I am. Those, they don't typically last for my attention span very long, but when they do, oh boy, do they. I've had Galactic Grammys on that Cookie Clicker. They got up to Universal status. If you've ever played Universal or Cookie Clicker, you know what the hell I'm talking about. A game goes some places. No. Regular sleep, no. Regular sleep doesn't bother me. Regular dreams don't bother me. What I'm afraid of is being put down. I've had to go into surgery to have this right leg amputated after a couple of years. I had to go down to have a molar removed after my coma nightmare time. I've had to go down a couple of times, and both times I had a brand new, fresh, do not resuscitate signed and ready to go, because that's what I'm afraid of. I'm not even afraid to die anymore. That got broken somewhere along the way in the coma nightmares. I'm not a badass or anything. It just broke. It doesn't work anymore. Like I think of my own impending doom, and I'm just like, yeah. I think of my daughters, and it's like, But I think of mine, and who gives a shit? We all die, you know. But I'm afraid of going back to those nightmares specifically, not regular nightmares. Regular nightmares don't bother me. I've had some since then. Who cares? You wake up and they're almost already gone. So I'm a talented dreamer. I can lucid dream on occasion. And I think that was one of the most terrifying parts of the nightmare because I had the awareness of a lucid dreamer. Anybody that's lucid dreamed knows what I'm talking about. It's like the moment where your brain's like, you're dreaming. And usually you either just wake up or you can take some measure of control over the dream at that point. But in the coma nightmares, I got as far as you're dreaming. That's it. I couldn't control anything. I couldn't change anything. I couldn't make myself change. I was a puppet on strings, which is a weird thing to talk about. Hi, Katie. It's good to see you again. Because you also feel like you are doing the actions in the dreams. So you might say things like, I was doing yada yada, but I was fighting against it. And that's like a hard thing to compute. It's almost like you're flexing a muscle that doesn't exist when you're doing things in these nightmares and you're fighting to stop them. Yeah. Yeah, life problems, who gives a shit? After you go through something like that, you're just like, yeah, there's so many things I used to care about. Karen is an old friend of mine. If she's still in here, she can probably verify this for you, that I just don't anymore. They don't matter. I realized how unimportant and bullshit they were. They just fell away from me. Do I have book suggestions? It'd be easier to say, hey, what's your favorite genre, Joseph? Joseph, sorry. Because I've read a lot of books, fiction, nonfiction. What kind of books do you like? So anyways, yeah, I fear going back there because you're aware, you can feel it, you can smell it, you can feel the temperature of the room, you can suffer, you can die and not die. All these things that don't happen in normal dreams can happen there. And I'm talking about it as if it's a physical place we can all go to. It was something that the drugs were doing to my brain. I have this theory that we all have that part of our subconscious. I probably wasn't, to be completely honest with you. Maybe I was just smelling things in the hospital, or maybe my brain was conjuring up smells that I'd smelled before. Yes, I did. I actually fell in love with somebody in there I think it was towards the end. Maybe I should do a video about those happy dreams. Actually, there wasn't many of them. We can just go over them here and now. Towards the end, I remember I was suspended in some kind of, it was a dark room. I was suspended on some kind of wiring, and it wasn't painful. There was another place where I was suspended face down into the wires, and that was painful. That was one of the torture ones. But this one, I was laying down on some kind of wire mesh, and I remember this computer floating above me. It was a cube. It was like a black. Do you ever see? There's this kind of gel that people can make that looks like a cloud. And it looks so crazy because you can cut it into a cube and it looks like a little cube of cloud. It's real. It's a gel. That's probably where my mind pulled it from. I've seen it. It's called aerogel or some shit. Anyways, there was a computer float through the room that was like a black version of one of those with this red pulsing light in the middle of it. And it was just gently floating, doing whatever, dream stuff, I guess. And there was this Asian woman with short hair, leaning over me, being nice to me, caring for me, touching me in caring ways, not sex ways or anything like that. Old Dickie didn't even work yet. That didn't work until I got home. But it was just tenderness, caring, something loving. And I remember saying to this person, I love you. It's the only thing I said to her. She said, you're dreaming. And for the longest time, I accepted that I must have said, I love you out loud to a nurse or somebody being nice to me in the real world. And they said, you're dreaming back. And I heard that and it got transferred to the Asian woman, which became the dream. Here's the catch. I couldn't have possibly have said anything out loud because I had one of these breathing for me, feeding me, all that. So I said that to my own subconscious, and my own subconscious mind told me, hey, buddy, you're dreaming. This Asian lady doesn't exist. It's all we. So go join the Robert Mobley subreddit. Excuse me? I have a subreddit? Yeah, a couple weeks. And at first they still use this whole like when they took out the major stuff, they would still like put in this thing to help me breathe, or they would occasionally go in and clear out like a bunch of like I was it was fucking gross. If you want to hear how gross this was, I remember I had a coughing fit and it went poop out that hole, and I was like, I never want to see that shit again. It's fucking gross, man. So yeah, that was a pleasant dream. I fell in love with that woman. I also had the dream that I think I wouldn't have known. I wouldn't have known. I had no idea if they had any of that kind of stuff hooked up to me while I was in there. I know I was hooked up to just about everything. I had a colostomy, I had a catheter, I had things breathing for me, I had things clearing my kidneys for me. Basically, my organs had shut down. Like my girlfriend looked through my medical records and she broke down crying. I never read them because I figured that would happen. So seeing her read them, she's like, "You should be dead. Your organs were turned off." And they came back. My kidneys are back. My liver's back. Everything's back. Everything works. My pee even works, which is, I was really happy. I was really happy when that, I hate to be such a typical fucking dude, but it felt so good to like, I was in the hospital. The first twitch happened in the hospital right towards the end when I knew I was going to be leaving in a few days. I was watching this movie. Awful fucking movie. I hated it. It was called, damn it, it's about this woman, Nymphomaniac. It bored the shit out of me. But they had actual sex in that movie. Yeah, I'll actually get to that when I finish talking about this. They had actual sex in that movie, like a porn. I guess that's part of like that director just had to. I need to make it real. She's really got to suck that dick. Okay, it didn't make the movie better. Sorry, guy. But anyways, it happened, and I felt like this little, not even a chubby or a half, but just a little bit of like, like that's all it did. It just was like, oh, and I was like, be still my heart. It works. It might work. And I got home, and one of the first things I did is like, okay, nobody's fucking here. I'm gonna sit here and watch porn until this motherfucker does his goddamn job. And it happened. And I was so happy. I wanted like Queen to start playing in the background. And I'm just like, yes. Okay. Yes, to get back to that question, I did tell the staff as soon as I could talk, I started talking about the dreams, the nightmares. I don't want to go back to them. I still wasn't entirely sure about my reality. I was pretty sure I was in actual reality, but I was still a little, because I was going back and forth into surgery, and I would have those kind of dreams again, and they would kind of blend right on into waking up all the way. And I was just like, one of the last ones I had, this was a surgery that happened after I'd woken up, and they had to put me down again. And I had this nightmare. Like, as I was laying, I was being wheeled into recovery. And at first, I was first person view, and I started to acknowledge things being placed weird, like suddenly appearing. And then my view kind of panned out from myself. And it was a video game, I guess, about making a hospital. And I was merely one of the things that you could place. And I watched the room that I was in be created a la The Sims. And it freaked me the fuck out, like so much that even my weakened, atrophied body, I was like trembling. And I was trying to, like, I wanted to write a note and I didn't know what to write. And I was freaking out because that was the closest tie. Like, this world you're in is still fake. You're still trapped. And that oh my God. Anyway, the nurse, she couldn't tell that I couldn't talk yet. So she was just like, hey, this guy's freaking out. Why don't you go take him back to his room? And that actually helped me to get out of the room where I saw it be constructed mentally in my head. To be moved somewhere else, I was able to calm down and start again convincing myself, you're done, you're out, you're done, you're out, you're done, you're done. You know? So yeah, I talked to them, and most of them that had been working for more than a year or so in a hospital, like doing intensive care, were like, yeah, every now and then we get a guy like that, or a girl, or somebody has this really bad experience when they're put into an induced coma or something of the sort. They have these intense, horrifying, violent nightmares. Sorry. And that was about the extent of it. They were just like, yeah, but you lived. One in particular was like really curious about it, just wanted to know. That how would you know the difference between the dream world and the real world? The real world keeps happening the same way. The dream world, nothing is ever nailed down. Nothing is certain. Your reality shifts. You're in a different scenario suddenly, like blink, and you're in a different scenario. Nothing is logical. Nothing. I was in situations where gravity didn't work right, where things were flowy, like walls were very flowy. I saw all kinds of things that just could not exist, that defied the laws of physics and nature and all rationality. You can tell you're in the real world because it keeps being. I go to sleep tonight in this bed. I wake up tomorrow in this bed. The walls all look the same. Everything's in the same place. It all feels the same. It all sounds the same. It's the same. It's real. Coma world is not. Coma world is it's just bad. It doesn't make sense, and it just drags you through every kind of nightmare scenario you've ever thought. I couldn't tell you what, like, if anybody was like, I'm facing going down into that kind of thing. What can you say to prepare me? Nothing, because I don't know what your subconscious has in hold for you. For all I know, you'll be traipsing with the elves through the forest, la 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 la, and having a great old grand time. I have no idea. My only advice would be prepare. Mentally prepare yourself for the fight of your life. But maybe that's bad advice, because maybe that like loads the subconscious mind into a horror state right off the bat. Who knows? It's a weird thing. It's a hard thing to talk about. No, I was dreaming. I knew I was dreaming. Mentally, I was in a lucid state, except I couldn't control anything and I couldn't wake up. I was aware. Like, I was awake. Like, I was looking around like, this is all bullshit. This is a dream. It has to be a dream. One of my worst imprisonment ones, I don't know if I brought it up. I don't really like talking about this, but fuck it. Because it makes me, it's not like my daughter that nightmare. It doesn't hurt me in that way, but it's just uncomfortable to talk about this one because I do remember this feeling, but we'll get it out of the way. One of the ones I knew was a nightmare and I couldn't stop was I may have talked about the ship, where the ship, the bottom part, I was trapped in the bottom part of the ship. The ship would go underwater. I could breathe water, but just barely, like I was drowning the whole time. And I would be down for hours and hours, come back up. And I would see people coming into the bottom of the ship, and I would desperately try to go out the hatch they're coming in, but I couldn't because I was lucid, but I couldn't control. Anyways, one of the ones worse than that was this is going to sound so ridiculous. I was on top of a house. Some of the older people in here might remember this cartoon, a Snork's house. I was underwater in a chair, strapped to a chair on top of a snork house in some kind of weird bubble that was very constricting, like I couldn't move. And I had a thing that breathed for me. What's up? All these Reddit people. And it barely worked. It barely worked. And I felt like I was drowning the entire time. And I knew that in the house below, in the house proper, I had family members or something that could come out and help me, but they didn't. So I knew that there was help, that they didn't care enough to come help me. And then I was on top of this Snork's house, drowning basically for hours. My guess is in the real world, the machine that helped me breathe wasn't like going fast enough to, what my lungs wanted. And so it just felt like I was drowning. I didn't perceive that as reality because I'm like, humans can't breathe. I'm under the ocean. This is bullshit. This is a dream. And that alone should have broken my mind. Like, you're not actually drowning. You're fine. But I couldn't stop feeling like this. Please, please, just desperately like clawing more breath. Please, I'm going to die. I can draw, but not all that great. I used to be able to draw very well, but I didn't practice. I'm practicing now. I'm getting back into art. I fell into colored pencil, the colored pencil medium, real heavy. I really quite like it. In fact, after this video, I'm going to go work on a project I have. Two, you'll never feed her. To the machine, never. Yeah, I think that machine exists in my subconscious because, parental fear. Because I felt like I was going to fail her. She's 5 years old now. She's, of course, no longer an infant. She's quite, if she was here right now, she'd be soaking up the camera time. She'd be all about talking to you guys about every little thing. She loves to talk. She's a happy, well taken care of little girl. And, I've been doing my job as a dad, and I will do so until I die. No, I'll never feed her to that machine. Never. I just fear, like, my greatest fear is that towards the end, something's going to happen to me that's going to put me into where they need to put me into an induced coma before I finally slip away. And it's like, just skip the induced coma part. Let me go. Just let me go. I'm not afraid to die. I'm not afraid of the pain of death. I've been there. Just let it happen. When my time is coming, don't prolong that shit with machines and stuff because you don't know what you're putting me into. Let me die. Don't let me go back there. It really, Owen, it really is. It's ridiculous. It's one of those things where you finally find out that when people tell you, you don't understand unless you've been through it. Parenting is, there's a lot of, like, when parents say that, a lot of times they're full of shit. Don't listen to them. Parents like to suck their own dicks all the time. But you don't understand unless you're going through it when it comes to parental fear. Spot on. Some kind of instinctual thing kicks on in people that love their kids, like that bonding activates, and they're genuinely like, I need to protect and nurture this thing that I call my child. When that activates, it's a whole new suite of worries and fears that you never fucking had before, never even considered having. I have conquered it. I woke up and then I told people about it. It's not hiding somewhere in my subconscious in the shadows, unknown, nobody knows about it, and I'm just facing that shit by myself. I have conquered it. Now the machine of my subconscious terror lies ticking away. When I say ticking away, like think about like when a son has been hitting a car all day and you just hear the metal plink. It's not doing anything, it just tinks over. Or when the hot engine turns off and you hear it clink, tink, 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 tink. That's what that fucking machine is doing. It is sitting in that sun of my subconscious mind turning to rust. I have conquered it. And I hope all of you, because I do believe our subconscious mind would conjure up some kind of machine or something. Like if you had to go deep and you felt it all and you had the dreams as vividly as I did, it maybe not wouldn't be a machine, but it would be something huge. Your greatest, grandest fear turned into this thing, monstrous and horrendous. I hope none of you ever meet it. Because I think that's in all of us. It's not a good guy or a bad guy thing. It's just a subconscious thing. I hope you never meet it. I hope that all of your machines turn to rust. I hope that their components seize up and are never used. I hope your tiny little demon whatevers get really bored. I have. I've heard of that. Yeah. I never really got that much. Like things didn't suddenly change size in dreams. It's just when I talk about that machine, it was everywhere. And it wasn't, I guess it wasn't really one machine. It was a bunch of little ones all interconnected with. I don't want to talk about that shit, man. The video's up there. If anybody's interested in that thing, they can go watch that video. This shit is fuck that machine. Fuck that machine. And it's weird because it was a dream. It was like I sometimes feel stupid having these kinds of emotions towards what I went through because it was all nightmares. None of it was real. Maybe I think the pain I felt was because I think that was on the surgery table, but the imagery wasn't. And yet, here we are. It just goes to show you the human mind is not like some people think that you can just will yourself through things, and you can't. We have limitations. We can only take so much trauma before we start to break down. And it doesn't matter how that trauma is delivered to us, it just matters that we're experiencing it. Trauma is trauma. I'm not stronger than anybody else. So many people, try to tell me I'm strong and inspiring, and I feel thankful that they're taking something positive from my story, but I don't feel that way. I feel like a weak man that is trying to be strong in the face of all the things that keep happening. I try to be strong in the face of my pain. I try to be strong in the face of my disability and stuff, but I don't always succeed. Oh, dude, when I was in the dreams, I tried that. I tried everything. People keep telling me about to write a book, but I don't know that I have the patience for it. Thanks, Karen. Um, Karen's words have weight because I've known her since I was just out of my teens, in my young 20s. I'm 39 now. I've known her for a long time. She's known me for years before the accident. She knows what's changed. So her words have some weight here. I know I've changed, and it's not all positive. I'm afraid of traffic now. That's my PTSD. I I was a professional driver before my accident. I didn't give a shit about traffic. I fucking worked in traffic. Traffic was every day. And then I first encountered my PTSD from the accident and everything when I was being driven home from the hospital. It was my first time really on a road, aside from very brief little flits out of one hospital into another that was like next door. they they get me on the freeway and I just like I shrivel and I can't even look at the cars. That's such a primal fear just rose up in me. Like I was a little kid again, afraid of the dark. I didn't want to look at the cars. And I was like this the whole way home. I couldn't stand going that fast. And I'm over it much more now, but I'm still not over it. I go rolling right next to heavy traffic all the time. I have to. If I want to have an outdoor life, I fucking got to do that. So I'm on the sidewalk and I'm going by, heavy traffic roads with high speeds and stuff. And it bothers me. Like I'm always nervous. I'm ready to hear behind me like a car lose control or something and dive for the grass out of my chair or whatever. Like I'm ready for that shit to happen because it's happened. My mind is like I'm always on alert when I'm out and about. Even when I'm a passenger, like my girlfriend will take me somewhere and my game is I got my phone and I don't look at whatever is going on out here when she's driving, because I don't want her to think that I think she's a shitty driver. I don't. But sometimes she's got to make maneuvers because other people are shitty drivers. And sometimes I see shitty drivers driving like shitty drivers. And I'm just like, fuck that. Look at the phone so I don't freak out. And the whole trip, I'll just read some news here. Doop doo. Oh boy, not looking at this. You know, that might not ever go away. From what I've been reading, PTSD tends to stick with you. It's never completely cured, but you can learn how to cope with it, live with it, and then still have a good and positive life where the PTSD doesn't drag you down. You know, trauma is trauma. Certain types of trauma tend to stick with you. As long as it's not an anchor. That's what really matters. And I've spent the last few years turning this anchor of my trauma into just like a duffel bag of bullshit that I carry around with me everywhere. It's still a duffel bag of bullshit, but it's not stopping me. It's not slowing me down. It's just something that I bear with me everywhere I go. Let's see. Yeah, California does have some shitty drivers. I drove up that way when I was a professional driver. I wasn't like a long haul trucker for very long, but it was long enough to uh, get a pretty good look at things. I also went out there when I lived with Karen many years ago. Didn't we go to San Diego or something? I don't know, San Francisco. I don't remember. It was a long time ago. Um, I drove all over this fucking country. I can tell you, shitty drivers exist everywhere. And the weird thing is like every state has their own version of shitty drivers. I'm in Florida. Our shitty drivers, you go 10 miles over the speed limit. Everyone everywhere in Florida understands this intrinsic rule. Nobody's going to pull you over if you go 10 miles over the speed limit. If you go above that, you're starting to run the risk of getting pulled over for a speeding ticket. But 10 miles, nobody's going to fuck with you. So everybody in Florida speeds everywhere. When I lived in Yuma, in Arizona, Karen can verify this. There was an unwritten rule across the whole of Yuma that when that turning, like if you're turning and you're waiting, uh, say you want to turn left, the light to turn left, turn green, you're going. The light turns red before you can get up to it. Are you one of the three cars? That when that light turned red, there's three cars that can go. That's a Yuma unwritten rule. 1, 2, 3. Every fucking time. Cops didn't even pull you over because everybody in Yuma did that shit. Light turn red. 1, 2, 3. Now it's red. Now it's really red. Hey, have a great day. Thanks for stopping in. I'm not getting into like the really, really scary stuff. I'm not. I'm probably never going to. I'm never going to talk in detail about the machine. I'm never. I just. I feel like those videos exist now, and the story is told enough to where you can get what happened, and questions from that point about those particular things are so specific that if I feel like answering them when they come up, I'll answer them. But otherwise, it just doesn't. You understand what you got to, and I'm not willing to dive into those waters all that often anymore. I don't want to. They bother me. Like to constantly bring up, there's a limit to how much help you can get from talking about things. And then you can just talk about them too much, and you constantly bring those memories back and back again and back again. And it's like, that's not helping. I got it out once and it's done. I don't need to talk about that anymore. Yeah, well, that's just Yuma with the red. With California, you have the uh, nation famous California rolling stop. That's not really a stop sign. Just kind of check around a little bit as you're rolling on through. In Florida, one of the ones I dealt with, there's a place near me that I had to deliver to all the time called the Villages. That's where old people go to die. You can look it up. Florida, the Villages. You will probably see one of the top stories is, hey, old people getting STDs because they fuck a lot. Uh, I'm not kidding, by the way. That's one of the big things that the Villages is famous for. Old people STDs. Um, Also terrible I want to die type driving. Like every time I went on a delivery, I had to go through the Villages. I was like, let's roll them dice. And half the time, there would be an old person that's just like, I don't need a signal. I just want to be in that lane. And it doesn't matter who's there. I'm not checking. Woo! And it's just fuck the fucking Villages. That was I also drove for tour buses though, and honestly, the Villages, as bad as they are with those old people who apparently just wish they were dead, they will never be tourists who just gotta have that picture. Worst fucking thing you can do as a tourist in Florida is drive down a busy road and be like, you know what? I need to get a picture of that sign that tells us Disney is that way. So we're just gonna fucking stop on a freeway and get that picture. Never mind, there's a many ton to fucking full load bus behind me, desperately trying to figure out how far they can push their brakes. I gotta have that picture. Don't ever do that if you come to Florida. Don't ever fucking do that. You will die. So, yeah. After my experiences, let's see, it's been, as of October 2nd this year, it'll have been 5 years. And I'm doing good. I'm doing better. Um, and I think I've just kind of accepted my body, my disability, and everything. I've accepted this. So I don't post as much because I'm not trying to. I've used you guys as therapy, honestly. It was never about attention or wealth. I knew that shit wasn't coming. You know how many fucking people, I'm going to be a YouTuber. I'm not trying to compete with that shit. There's so much of that shit. Just the fact that a few of you guys were here and you heard me and I didn't feel alone. That helped. You guys were my stranger at the bar when I needed a stranger at the bar more than anything else. You guys were there. Thank you. I'm not sure if I'm going to stream again. I don't know. I'm not going to lie anymore and say that I am, or, I have ideas. Maybe they'll happen. Maybe they won't. I appreciate the subscription, and use it as like a signal buoy. Like, oh shit, that dude actually made something. It was 3 months since he last made something. I'm not here for fame. I guess I'm just kind of here to hang out, talk about some shit, and thank you for letting me do that. This is going over an hour now. Andrew, I'm glad I've been able to help you like that. I'm glad that my stories were able to do that for you, or for anybody else. That helps a lot. Weirdly, knowing that my stories help people find their way kind of out of their own darkness, it helps cope with what's left of mine. And I guess we all carry our darkness with us for the rest of our lives. You never fully get rid of it. You just learn how to deal with it. So thank you guys. I'm not going to let this go on any longer. It's a long ass fucking video anyway. And I'm not going to edit it down into several episodes or anything like that. The shit is going up like this. Have a great evening. Thank you for listening to me.